Okay, we're back again. Hopefully we're going to get our technology to work this time. Welcome to our Yummy Sprout online cooking class. We've never done a class online before, so this will be a fun try. If you are just tuning in and you happen to see us and you don't have the list of ingredients, scroll down our page and you can find the link that has the ingredients and the tools that you need, but we're also going to kind of go over it as we go, so you can always grab them as we're going. My name is Tara. I am an instructor and the owner of Yummy Sprout, and we also have a team of wonderful other instructors. We usually teach classes in person, but since we can't do that right now, we're going to do this fun one online. And I am so lucky I have my assistants with me today. These are my assistant/daughters, Isla and Bianca. Guys, do you want to say anything? What do you love to cook?
Cookies.
Cookies? Ooh, yeah.
Donuts. Oh yeah, I love the donuts that you made.
Yeah, you love donuts too? Awesome. All right. So, okay, good. All right. I'm trying to keep watching too to make sure things are working. Technology is definitely not my 100% forte, but hopefully we will get it working. I did practice, but I feel like even when you practice, things tend to go awry. So we're gonna get started cooking pretty quickly here. I'm kind of delaying a little just to make sure. I know there was a lot of people who wanted to attend, so people are able to get on. Also, you are able to pause Facebook Live. So if you do wanna pause and then just get, you can at any time if you need to grab something or whatever. And we're gonna put the video on our page. So if you don't catch it live, you'll be able to watch it later, or you can watch it again too. Also, after this, when we put this on our page, in the comments we'll have a section where you can just drop in your email and we will email you out a printable version of the recipes. So if you wanna make them again and you don't wanna have to watch us every time, you'll be able to. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Our recipes today are cheddar herb biscuits, chocolate chip cookies, and fruit kebabs. So really yummy and fun stuff. And we're gonna start with our cheddar herb biscuits. Those are probably the most complicated, but they're not really complicated. And we're gonna get those in the oven. The cookies go in the oven too. So we're gonna wanna start with those. The first thing that we're gonna do actually is turn on our oven. And since we're gonna start with the biscuits, I'm gonna turn the oven on to 425, and then when we switch over to the cookies, we'll turn it down to 350. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it to 425. You can also turn it to 400. Most people know their ovens, and since we're using our home ovens today, if you know yours runs a little hot or whatever, you can play around with it. But biscuits are typically cooked at a slightly higher temperature, and they don't take very long, which is nice. So we're gonna go ahead, pop on our oven. So go ahead and turn your oven on to 425. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get our butter ready for our biscuits. And you want it to be really cold when making biscuits. So hopefully it's still in the fridge, but don't worry if it's not. We're gonna chill it a little bit more. So I'm gonna have my assistants get our butter ready so you guys can follow along. I'm gonna grab it from the fridge. Today we're using Earth Balance, which is like a plant-based butter, but you can use regular butter, whatever you have. Sticks tend to work really well, but if you just have tub butter, you can make that work too. We're gonna go ahead, and what you need is 3.5 tablespoons of your butter or your Earth Balance. And we wanna cut that into little tiny sort of chunks. We're gonna actually pop it in the freezer for a few minutes while we get the rest of our biscuit stuff ready. And that way it'll be really cold, so you get those nice buttery pockets in your biscuits, right, girls?
Tasty.
So today we're going to be using some Kid Chef knives. These are what the girls use a lot. We also have plastic ones too. Or you can also have the grown-up doing the cutting of the butter, either way. Also, Bianca, can you hand me that plastic knife over there? If you just have a disposable plastic knife, those work great for kids to use. You know, they won't cut through a carrot, but they'll cut through a lot of things. So I'm gonna have Isla go ahead and cut our butter into here, let's see, 1, 2, 3.5, into little cubes. So you guys are gonna wanna do the same thing. And then you can either put it on a napkin or in a little dish so that you can pop it in your freezer for a few minutes. I'm gonna lift this up so I can show what she's doing. Here, it gets stuck to the knife,
Yeah.
huh? And that's because
sticky.
and it melts really fast, which is why we want to get it back in the freezer. So one thing you'll notice Isla's doing is her hand that's not holding the knife, she's keeping tucked. This is what we call the claw, right, girls? And that keeps your fingers tucked so you don't accidentally cut on your fingers, which doesn't feel very good. And for anybody wondering, these little metal knives were from IKEA, actually. Kids' knives. You can search kid knife on IKEA. I think it comes with a peeler. And we use these a lot for our classes, our tween classes, and our teen classes, and our adult classes even. And then here, let me help you with that, honey. Don't put your finger on the bottom. And then we also use our plastic ones, and those are available on Amazon, which actually work really well. They cut through a lot of stuff. So let's get our dish. So the butter was 3½ tablespoons of butter. 3½ tablespoons. You could go ahead and add 4 if you like them really buttery. Go for it. It'll still work. I wouldn't add more than that, or you might end up with affecting the texture. So once you have your cubes, those look perfect, Isla. You're gonna stick them in. I will show you what they look like. We're gonna pop them in the freezer. Thank you, Bee. Those look great. So they're gonna get broken up more in the biscuit dough, so they don't really have to be perfect. Just kind of a random amount, and that's 3½ tablespoons. So I'm gonna put this in the freezer. So go ahead, pop it in your freezer. Don't worry, it's not gonna freeze all the way because we're just gonna leave it in there a little bit while we get the rest of the stuff ready for the recipe. And the biscuit dough actually comes together really quickly, which is really awesome. It's like a great, easy sort of recipe you can make quickly, but it's really yummy. Okay, so we're gonna put this knife aside and maybe this board aside since we kind of got it messy. But if you're gonna use your cutting board and knife again for
Just
the
like
fruit,
wash it.
yeah, just wash it, what she said. So, all right. So our next step, the recipe, and if you had the sheet of ingredients, called for buttermilk. If you have buttermilk, you're good to go. We don't have buttermilk on hand, so we're gonna make some with milk and vinegar. It works really well and it tastes really good in the recipe. I've done it many times.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start with our milk. You need a 1/2 cup of milk. We're just using 2% because that's what we have on hand. You could use a dairy-free milk, you know, maybe coconut milk or almond milk. I have done it before with dairy-free milk, but you do get some of that taste. So if you really like coconut, it'll be good, but you get a little more sweetness when you use a dairy-free milk. So we're gonna go ahead and add some vinegar. Today we're using apple cider vinegar. Can you grab me a tablespoon, Bianca? So it's 1/2 cup of milk and 1 tablespoon vinegar, or 1/2 cup of buttermilk. So if you already had buttermilk on hand, you just need 1/2 cup of it. We're gonna go ahead and make our buttermilk by adding, you wanna hold this? All right, we'll add a tablespoon in. All right, go ahead, dump that in. Nice, and then just use that to kind of swirl it a little bit. So we just used apple cider vinegar, but if you don't have that on hand, you can use any vinegar you have. White vinegar, rice vinegar. If you don't have any vinegar, even lemon juice will work. Only I have had some people say you can kind of taste the lemon a little bit, which isn't necessarily bad. And that's gonna kind of turn into buttermilk. We're just gonna let it sit while we work on our dry ingredients for our recipe for our biscuits. So the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take one of your big metal bowls and you're gonna measure out 1½ cups of flour. We're just using regular all-purpose flour today. You can absolutely use whatever you have on hand, flour-wise. The texture might be a little different depending on what type of flour you're using. So go ahead and grab a 1½ cup, and each of you guys measure it out. And I'll tip the camera a little so that you guys can show. And yes, it was 1 tablespoon of vinegar, and it was 3½ tablespoons of butter that we put in the freezer, and we're adding 1½ cups of flour. So I'm gonna go ahead and tip this up So that was 1 tablespoon vinegar to half a cup of milk. I think we're gonna slow down a little bit because it seems like some people aren't able to pause, even though supposedly we're supposed to be able to pause this. And so I just don't want people to get really far behind. So we'll add our flour and then we'll slow down a little bit. So if you're, yeah, go ahead, dump that in. So we're adding 1.5 cups of flour into our big bowl. Yeah, if it works better to pour it, that always works too. Sometimes you have to really dig down.
Can you pour it?
Yeah, looks like you need to pour that one.
No, you hold it.
For baking recipes like biscuits, you want to try to be kind of exact. This is a pretty forgiving recipe, but you want to be pretty close to the measurements. So we added 1.5 cups of flour, and we're not going to do anything else for a little bit. So here, we're going to go ahead and do this and give people a little chance to catch up. And also, maybe, just maybe, you girls would like to talk for a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and put the recipe right on our Facebook page so people can follow along, since they're not able to pause. There we go. All right, so you guys scooch a little this way, and you can kind of talk about what we've done so far, or about your favorite recipe.
My favorite recipe is that we're making today is the chocolate chip cookies because I love chocolate chips. What about you?
My favorite recipe is the biscuits we're making right now because I've always loved biscuits and these ones are my favorites of all of them.
Yeah, because they're like so flaky.
Yeah, they're like the best
And also
biscuits.
it's healthy because there's also like fresh fruit. And fresh fruit is really good for you.
Guys, can you go over what we've done so far?
So far, what we've done is we've
added some vinegar and milk into
Do you remember
measuring
how much
cup.
it was?
it was 1/2 cup of milk and 1 tablespoon of vinegar.
What if you already had buttermilk? Then you didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
If you already had
Bubble,
buttermilk,
just-
you don't need to do that.
just one.
But
just,
I mean, like you can always make your own buttermilk if you want to,
so that's how you do it.
and then you just
And
stir
then
it up a little bit.
we just added.
We added 1.5 cups of flour into here,
into-
and before that, we cut butter into 3.5 cups of butter,
3.5 tablespoons.
Tablespoons of-
3.5 tablespoons.
3.5
Don't have 3.5 cups.
3.5 tablespoons of butter, cut up into little squares, and melted.
Yeah.
Or something.
And what we first did was we heated up the oven.
Yep.
To what temperature?
400 and what?
25.
425 degrees. But just know that if your oven is gets really hot or doesn't warm up very fast,
Set it maybe like
you
a
can
little
set it
bit
to
down.
what you know you should. But it's basically 425 degrees. Ella, what's your favorite part of baking the biscuits?
That you get to eat them.
Yeah, that is a really
My
really
favorite
good
part
part.
of baking the biscuits is whisking them up because I have a memory of one time of making something else that in baking that involved whisking, and I spilled it all over the counter, and I got it all over myself.
Wow, that's bad.
And then I was just laughing and laughing and laughing.
Do you even have an apron
Of course, I had an apron on.
on? Oh, good.
We tend to be kind of messy cooks in this house.
Yeah.
So don't
I've
feel
never been a
bad.
cook that's not messy.
Yeah.
Oh, some people are not. We
And if
can
you have
do-
Wow.
an apron, you can just wipe it on there.
Yep. Anyway, I was just laughing so hard, and I never even finished what I was making. That's why I've always loved whisking, but I'm always super
What is your
careful with it.
favorite baking food?
My favorite baking food is probably donuts because I love to bake them myself.
And I love the chocolate chip ones you made.
Yeah.
My favorite baking thing is probably cake.
Oh yeah, you love to make cake. I remember that cake you made for my birthday. It was so awesome.
It was actually an ice cream cone with it looked like ice
She
cream.
put
It was so cool.
frosting on the cake and the frosting like in the cone and upside down.
Alright.
It looked
It was
like an
like
ice cream cone.
Upside down ice cream cake. It was super cool.
That
Back
is
to our
cool.
recipes now, though.
Okay, so I did go ahead and post on our Facebook page the image, and it is the recipe sheet that's also, you can print it out. I did it as a JPEG so versus a PDF since you can't upload those. So it might not be quite as high resolution for printing, but you can definitely look at it and see the recipes. So in case you get behind, you can look at it. Going over one more time, we took 3.5 tablespoons of butter and we cut it up kind of into cubes and we put it in the freezer for a little bit. We turned the oven on to 425 and we measured out a 1/2 cup of milk that we put a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, or you can use any type of vinegar to make some buttermilk. If you already have buttermilk, just a 1/2 cup of buttermilk will do. And then we went ahead and measured out 1 cup and a 1/2 cup, so 1.5 cups of flour into our big bowl. Our next ingredient we're gonna go ahead and add into our big bowl is some baking powder, and we need a teaspoon of baking powder. So here's our baking powder here, and we need 1 teaspoon. So go ahead and grab a teaspoon from there, Bianca, and measure it out and show how you level it off.
So if it's like too high like this, you just set it on top and you just slide your finger so it's even on the top.
So now
Nice.
it's super flat when you look at it.
So you know you
You get
have
the
the
right
right
exact
amount.
amount. Let me just add it into the bowl.
And if it sticks, just tap it on the side.
Yeah. So we've added 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and we're going to go ahead and add a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. So if you don't have a 1/4 teaspoon, because not all sets come with them, and you just have a teaspoon, you can use, or if you have 1/2 teaspoon, so you could use 1/2 of a 1/2, or you could just kind of eyeball it about a 1/4 teaspoon.
Half of this.
1/2 of this. So we have a 1/2 teaspoon, so we're going to add about 1/2 of this of our baking soda. And baking soda is the one that comes in the square container that you see a lot of times in the fridge
good?
because it can be a good
Yeah.
odor eater.
So you can
looks
see
good.
that we
Then
added
you just
about
And
half.
then usually the baking powder is the round container.
Just add it
All
right to the bowl.
right to the bowl. So that was 1.5 cups flour, 1 teaspoon baking powder, and a 1/4 teaspoon, baking soda. And then after we've added that, we're gonna go ahead and do some whisking. Now, if you're reading the recipe, you can also run it through a sifter and sift it, but it's not critical. So we're kind of
So
skipping
we have a
that step
sifter
today.
here, but we're not going to use it.
We're just gonna use our whisk, and we're gonna whisk it really well. That's important for sure. That's just our timer telling us our oven is warm.
Make sure you get all that mixed up.
So we're gonna go ahead and whisk it up. We just wanna make sure that it's really well combined.
And not spilling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to make sure you're not like crazy whipping.
Oh wait, show me that crazy whipping thing again. Okay, yeah. No, I meant Isla. There you go. Nice job. So that's really important. So take a little bit of time to whisk it up really, really well. Get all those ingredients combined. And once you have your sort of flour mixture, we're gonna get that butter put into there. I'm just gonna go ahead and get ours out of the fridge or freezer, but I wanna give everybody, woo, I tell ya.
Careful.
I know, this thing's a little bit temperamental. There we go. So I'm gonna get it out of the freezer and give everybody time to whisk up their flour mixture and get their cold butter out of the freezer. And we'll get it going. I'm gonna grab that butter. And Isla, you can go ahead and keep whisking. We can't over whisk at this point.
Because it's just powder.
All right. Nice jobbing. There we go. All right. So we're going to go ahead and add our butter next. This is super cold. You can see the edge of the container because it was in the freezer. So it's
Yeah.
going to feel a little cold on your hands during this part. The next step is take your whisk out of your bowl. You don't want to leave the whisk in the bowl because the butter will kind of get stuck to it at this point. And you're going to dump all your butter into your flour
And you can just
mixture.
use your fingers.
We're going to use our hands now at this point. So make sure your hands are clean, which we should have said at the beginning of class.
Yeah,
we
we
always
should
wash
wash them.
hands.
Well, we did.
We
but-
did, but we didn't say that. But it's always a good idea to wash hands before cooking, always. Even
'Cause you
if
wanna-
you feel like you just did, like right before you start cooking, it's a good idea.
You want to make sure there's no
If you
germs.
have a pastry cutter, you can use that. I like to use my hands. I feel like they work the best. And kids are really good at this part. So roll up your sleeves if you're wearing sleeves. And we're going to do some pinching. You're going to put your hands into the mixture and you're going to kind of pinch the butter between your fingers. What you're trying to do is turn all the little pieces of butter to about the size of a green pea. So let me show you. Whoop, about this big. You don't want them too small though, because then you won't get those nice pockets of butter.
Yeah, 'cause
So
when-
I'm gonna let you guys do that. Takes a couple turns to kind of get it all mushed together so that it is sort of the texture of sand. I'm gonna go ahead and tip this. Go ahead.
Come in.
Keep smushing it together. Squish those little bits of butter between your fingers. You want to get them all about pea size, green pea size.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that there's not any huge pieces of butter, but also you don't want it too mixed in because you want to get those buttery, flaky biscuits.
Want to make sure it's just.
It's looking good. I still see some chunks that are a little big, so maybe sort of look where you're squishing, yeah, and squish those together.
Like, you can feel if they're big, because, like, the bigger ones are usually colder.
Yeah, that's a good point. Your hands start to warm them up a little, which is why we put them in the freezer, just to help make sure they stay cold. Nice job, teamwork. Yeah, if you're cooking with your grown-up or you're cooking with a sibling at your house, you guys can use teamwork or you can take turns doing things. We usually do that in our house. Sometimes we fight over the fun jobs, but we're going to try not to do that today. So, and I'm looking at that mixture. It looks really good. I just see a couple of pieces that are kind of big. So I'm going to go ahead and help. But honestly, it looks almost perfect. You just kind of want to sift your hand through a few times, scoop to the bottom, and check that there's no giant pieces of butter
And also,
hiding.
you can tell if there's giant pieces because they're more yellow than, like, the
flour.
Yeah.
And also they're giant.
That looks really good for us. That looks great, I think. All right, that looks awesome. So I'm going to dust off my fingers a little bit, tip this back up, and we're going to move on. So the butter is not melted. No, it was just fridge temperature, but we cut it up into little cubes, and then we popped it in the freezer for a little bit. You don't have to do that step. You can just use cold butter from the fridge, but it works really well to help kind of keep that butter cold in this process of making the dough. And there, because now it's not even really frozen. We only had it in the freezer for a few minutes. I would say 5 to 10 minutes or so. It wasn't super long.
About 8.
About 8, you think?
Like 31 seconds.
Yeah. I might be losing track of time, my sense of time while we're doing this. I don't know. All right. So now that you have your butter all mixed up and sort of squished between your fingers to about the size of peas, then we're going to go ahead and add in our buttermilk that we had. And the trick to this is, remember when I said you can't overmix with the dry ingredients? That's true. But then once we start mixing the dough, we don't want to overmix. We just want to mix it kind of till it comes together. Because we want to keep those butters how they are, and we want the dough not to be overworked. So let me double check. Yep. So sometimes I like to take a little bit, just a very tiny bit of the buttermilk that we measured out
Just like
to save for brushing on the top. So I'm just going to add a little tiny bit, like about a teaspoon or maybe as much as a tablespoon. Ooh, it's nice and chunky, so definitely turn to buttermilk. Just for brushing on the top. but then you guys can pour the rest right into the bowl. So we're pouring our buttermilk right into the bowl. Now again, if you didn't have vinegar and you didn't have buttermilk, you can just use milk. That's fine.
It's nice and chunky.
You can hear the splat.
You can hear the splat, yeah.
True.
All right, and then you guys are gonna gently mix it together, okay?
Are we folding or just mixing?
Oh, you can kind of fold it
So
together till it's
folding
combined.
is where you kind of take it and you turn over like this, like you're folding it up.
But not like
Yeah.
really folding.
And it's gonna seem dry and sticky, and you just keep kind of twisting
sure
it
you hold
together till you kind of get a dough. And then we're gonna mix in our cheese and our herbs if you have herbs on hand. The only herbs that we have are dill on hand, but you can also use dried herbs. The only fresh herbs we had was dill. So I think, should we use that or should we use some Italian seasoning?
Both.
You think both? All right.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll let them decide.
You can never have
So
too many
yeah,
herbs.
so a lot of times when we make these biscuits, we use rosemary or oregano or even Italian, other ones in the Italian seasoning mix. But we usually use fresh. But you can use really any ones that you have on hand.
The dough is nice
And
and
dried
sticky.
works too. Or you can skip it all together and just have cheesy biscuits with no herbs in them. Either way.
Yeah,
so.
but I think herbs are
All right, this dough looks really good. I'm going to show you guys a little bit. This is kind of what our dough looks like right now. We
It's
are
all
going to knead it
sticky.
with our hands, so don't worry. If it still looks a little sticky, that's normal. But first we're going to get our cheese and our herbs in there. So for cheese, you can add whatever you have on hand.
Yeah.
I usually do like a cheddar. We have like a Mexican blend on hand. So whatever you guys have in your house, you can use shredded, or if you don't have shredded, you can shred it yourself. We're gonna go ahead and add in a cup of our cheese. Again, if you didn't like cheese, you could make these biscuits without it. It would be absolutely fine. They would still turn out. You could just leave the cheese out. Or if you're not a huge cheese fan, you could reduce your cheese a little. Either way.
Optional.
You can definitely make them with dairy-free cheese if you have that and you need to use that. That definitely works.
And
We've
if you
done that
really
before.
like cheese, you can add like a lot of cheese.
Yeah. Okay. Well, don't go too much over a cup, or it'll definitely change your texture. A
Yeah.
little over a cup would be fine though. All right. So start mixing that cheese in, and then you guys said both dill and oregano or Italian seasoning.
Yep.
So here's our dill. For a lot of herbs, you can just use your fingers to break them apart.
Don't
You
use
can
like a
cut them
knife.
with your knife on your cutting board, or I just like to use my fingers and kind of turn them into little green confetti, and that works perfectly. I'm not gonna. Should I add a lot or a little? I mean, I don't want to turn them into pickle
Medium
biscuits.
size,
What do you think?
medium
Medium
size.
size? Okay. All right, we're gonna try it. I've never made them with dill before, but it could be like the new best thing: cheesy dill biscuits. And we're gonna add in some Italian seasoning. You guys said you want to add?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, why don't you measure about a teaspoon or so of Italian seasoning
It's getting
into
quite
our
sticky.
dough.
It's getting quite sticky.
It's getting quite sticky, yeah. That's good. I think you've mixed it in. And the next step we're going to do is use our hands. So we've used our big spoon here, and we'll get that Italian seasoning in there, and then we'll be able to use our hands, and we'll show you how to turn it into biscuits. One thing you can do if your dough is already ready is line your baking sheet with parchment. That'll just help them not stick to your baking sheet. Or you can use one of those reusable mats that you can put down.
Yeah.
Either way. Or if you don't have either of those, you can also like just grease it up with some butter or something.
Or like put some flour on the counter.
I was talking about the pan, but yes, definitely. We'll definitely talk about how we're going to turn them into biscuits. And you got that Italian seasoning ready? That looks pretty good. Dump that in.
We got about a teaspoon of Italian seasoning.
Okay. And we'll just kind of mix it up. Yeah, when you add Italian seasoning and cheese, you might end up with like a pizza sort of biscuit. Yum.
Well,
All right.
not with sauce.
Well, our dough is ready. So we're going to go ahead
Never know.
and get our parchment. We're going to put a little parchment down on the counter. You can just use a clean counter. You don't have to, but it just makes it a little easier because the dough doesn't stick to the parchment very well. So we're going to put a little parchment,
And
a little flour,
Just to make sure it doesn't stick.
Yeah, that really helps. So if you have whatever your work surface is, you can put down, we're putting down a sheet of some parchment. We'll just set this here for now. And here, Bianca, why don't you go put some parchment on our pans now, okay? So that they're ready to bake. So we've got our parchment down on our counter, and we're gonna take some of our flour and just sprinkle a little bit down so we have a nice sort of not too sticky surface for making our biscuits. Let's show. There we go. All right. So now we're going to take our dough and we're going to knead it a little bit before we turn it into biscuits.
So you punch it with the palm of the hand.
Like I need you, or like the other kind of need?
Other kind of need.
Well, I do need you.
Yeah. Punch, and then fold it over.
So there's a lot of cheese at the bottom of the bowl, so I'm going to squish that into our dough. We don't want to lose our yummy, yummy cheese, right, girls?
Right.
Okay. So now we've got our big dough pile here, and we're gonna knead it up a little bit. I'm gonna let Isla show you. I'll tip the camera a little bit. So show us the punch, fold.
So you're not actually punching with your fist. You're using the palm of your hand, and you're punching it a little bit to make it go out more, and then you're folding it over, and then keep doing it.
So you want to do that a few times. You don't have to do it for 20 minutes or anything crazy, just to kind of get the dough to come together. And then once you do that, I'm going to show you a couple different ways to shape it or turn it into your biscuits. So someone's saying our dough's not holding together. I would either say try mixing it a little with your hands or add a little more liquid. So if you added the half a cup of buttermilk and it's still not holding together, sometimes if you're using buttermilk that's already made, or if you're using a different milk, for whatever reason, it just does not, it's like thicker or whatever, just pour in a little bit more. So you kind of eyeball it. Your dough should be a little bit sticky still. So if it's really, really dry and not coming together, add a little more liquid, about a quarter cup at a time, just so you don't end up with soup, and kind of go from there. And then if it does get a little too sticky, add in a little bit more flour. This is a very forgiving recipe, so you can kind of keep adding and playing around with it. Oh yeah, that's looking really good. So I think she's kneaded the dough really well. I want to show kind of what it looks like now. So here's our dough. It's kneaded up pretty well. It feels a little sticky, but when I touch it and release my thumb, it doesn't stick too much. So you know that it's kind of ready to turn into biscuits then. If it is really sticky, just add more flour to your parchment, and kind of as you knead and work that flour in, it'll be perfect. So a couple of things we can do. Bianca, did you get all that parchment? She's getting the parchment on the pan. So a couple of options. Number one, easiest option for making these biscuits is what I like to call a drop biscuits. And so you just take some of the dough, however much you want. I mean, don't do like a basketball size. That would be too big.
You wouldn't even have that much.
But about the size of a golf ball or so, just so that or about the size of a,
right. Man.
What fruit does this look like? Maybe. About the size of or a little clementine orange, just so that it will bake through. If it's too big, like if we just bake this whole thing, the middle would be raw inside.
Yeah, you don't want it.
So we're going to take this, we're just going to roll it into a ball, drop it, and squish it kind of flat. And here's what it looks like. It's not real pretty, but it has a very rustic and organic look to it. So I like the biscuits like this. So you can do that with all of your dough. Drop and squish. If you'd like to take a little bit more time with your biscuits, another way is if you have a rolling pin, you can roll your dough out, but you don't want to roll it out too thin. Ooh, Rose said hi. You want to say hi to Rose? She's watching.
Hi.
Say hi, Rose.
Hi, Rose.
So you can roll it out a little bit with a rolling pin, but you want to keep it nice and thick. You don't want to roll it too much, because biscuits are definitely good when they're a little bit on the thick side. You don't want them too flat. And the other trick is you want to keep them about the same size as each other. If you have one that's really giant and one that's really small, that really small one's going to probably burn and get crispy in the time it would take to make that really big one. or, you know, so trying to keep them about the same size. They don't have to be perfect. And you can also, if you've rolled it out, you can use a cookie cutter or a biscuit cutter and cut out the shape. Again, grown-ups, that creates more dishes, so you might not want to do it that way. The drop ways are totally fine too. I think we're going to go ahead and do all of ours the drop way. This is just kind of fun.
So Bianca, we're just gonna take a little bit, a little of this, and then drop it.
So we're rolling our dough and dropping them. Drop it like it's hot, although they're not hot yet. Yeah. Do people still say that? No, they don't, do they? Right?
There's a song about it.
My daughters. Oh, is there?
There's a rap about it. That's kind of
Oh, okay.
That's kind of it.
My daughters keep me in the know about, you know, what's cool and not. Oh, I forgot. In the know is no longer cool. Oh yeah. Someone says, I think we missed salt. You're right. I don't think we added salt to our dough. And the recipe said half a teaspoon. So if you didn't add salt to your dough, that's fine. If you did add salt to your dough, that's also fine. Either way, it isn't critical to the recipe. We used a butter that was salted, so it will definitely be salty enough. But again, when you're eating the biscuit, if you want to sprinkle a little salt or add some salted butter, in this recipe, the salt wasn't critical to the dough turning out, thankfully. But yeah, that was on me. I totally missed the salt. So, but if you did add it, that's fine too. Either way. Because it really wasn't a lot. This recipe only calls for half a teaspoon, so it wasn't very much. All right, so let's check on our biscuits here. Ooh, those look so good.
Let me see how much.
Drop biscuits. All right, so I'm going to give you guys the pan, and you load them in onto the pan here.
Sure.
Ooh,
There's a little
our
over a
counter's
dozen.
getting kind of messy, right?
Yeah, there's a little over a dozen.
Really? Oh, wow.
1,
This will
2,
be
3, 4,
a good addition
5,
to
6,
dinner for you guys.
7, 8, 9, 10,
Now remember,
12, 13, 14. So it's 2 over a dozen.
And it's an even number.
nice. Well, you don't have to make them an even number, and you don't have to have the same amount as us, because remember, we are all making them sort of different sizes. So you guys at home, make yours how you like them, okay? And there we go. Cheddar herb biscuits. You can even see the little green bits of herb in there and the cheese. And that looks great. So we're gonna go ahead and put ours in the oven. And we'll kind of slowly do that so we can give people a chance to catch up. And I will finish up their biscuits. These guys, since we had 2 of you, you rolled them kind of quickly.
Yeah.
So we'll give you some time to get those rolled before we move on to the next thing. We're gonna go ahead and put ours in the oven and
It has heated up to 425 degrees.
also the one thing about this recipe is they do rise and they do spread a little bit, but not a ton. So for the biscuit
You
recipe,
want to make sure they're
it's
spread out.
it's okay if they're they're spread out. If they're a little close together, you just don't want them to be too close together, so that they're touching. So we're gonna go ahead and pop those in and set our timer for 8 minutes to check on them. They'll probably take, I would say, about 10 minutes. Oh, you know what we didn't do? We didn't add that extra buttermilk. Oh, somebody just said that too. You guys are on it. I'm going to pop them out so we can do that. So if you put some buttermilk aside, you can brush the tops.
Like we did.
Can you hand me the hot pad? Thanks, babe. And you can use, if you have a silicone or some sort of a baking brush, you can use that.
Just
Or you can, here, don't touch this because it got a little hot already. Or you can use just a spatula. So just a small little spatula right there.
You can just
And
scoop some-
just brush it on. And where did I set our
Here.
extra milk? Right there. Oh, thanks, guys. All right. So you can just take your extra buttermilk and sort of use the spatula to brush it on. You guys want to do that? Also, if you have, just don't touch the pan because remember it was in the oven. Just for a minute.
Do it.
Here we go. If you have a little
Just get a little
brush,
on.
you can use that too if you have one of these little
Here, can I use
brushes.
that? I'm gonna use that. Just brush them on a little goes a long way. Just brush it out.
Nice job, Isla. Another thing that's great about this recipe is your house is going to be smelling
Delicious.
delicious. Yes.
Yep, I think that's good.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. We'll put these back in the oven. Awesome. So in this recipe, I've forgotten to put the buttermilk on top lots of times, and they still
Yeah.
come out good. But it is better. It is better. You
Because
get a
then
little
you
bit
get
of
a little extra
glossier shine.
Lots
I'll just
of
leave the
butter.
timer where it is, but they might need a little extra time. So there we go. All right. Okay. So we're gonna let people catch up a little, and we'll sort of clean up our area because we made
Yeah,
a
it's, like,
big
really
mess on the
messy.
counter here.
Here, I'll give you a towel.
Okay, just to kind of wipe it down a little before we start our cookies. So, the nice thing about our cookie recipe is it's a one bowl recipe. So if you missed any of the biscuits or you're still in the middle of the biscuits, the recipe is on our Facebook page now, so you can check the amounts of things that we added. All right. Okie dokie.
Yeah, that's pretty much cleaned up.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think
Wipe
we
over here.
did a good job. We got most of our
Messy.
messy cleaned up so that we can. Ooh, let's see. Jaren says theirs are in the oven already. Awesome. I'm not great at keeping track of the comments, but I'm working on it. So if I miss a comment, I'm sorry. And that way, we're going to go ahead and move on to our cookies. But again, we'll go slow. And also the recipes are online. So if you get behind on the cookies and the pause function isn't working, then you can definitely check the recipe. So the great thing about this recipe is it's a one bowl recipe. We are literally going to throw everything
Just
into our big
everything.
bowl, and then our cookie dough will be ready. So we're going to start with 1 cup of nut or seed butter. We've made these cookies with sun butter, so if you need to use seed butter, totally works. They turn out great and they taste good. We're going to go ahead and use peanut butter today because that's what we have on hand, but they're really good with cashew
can
or
use
almond butter
any butter.
too. Yeah, any nut or seed butter works
Anybody that you
great.
have on hand.
I don't think I've tried it with sesame seed butter, but I
What,
bet you it
sunflower
would
butter?
work. Sunflower butter, we've made them lots with sunflower butter.
Yeah, that's all.
And they taste really good. Somebody's asking what kind of oats for the cookies. So we're using just these are some gluten-free oats that we use, which just plain oats. So whatever you would use to make oatmeal, but unflavored, I should say. If you only have flavored oatmeal packets on hand, you can totally use those because we don't need a lot of oats, but you might want to reduce how much of the brown sugar you add. So like if it's a sweetened packet.
Yeah, like
These ones say quick 1 minute oats, but we've made the cookies using, the long cooking oats before too, or that's not what they're called, long cooking oats, but I can't think of the word right now. So someone says, what's an option for peanut allergies? So sunflower butter works great in these cookies. Sun butter, we use that a lot.
coconut butter.
I don't know. I haven't made it with coconut butter, so I don't want to endorse that. It's a little different texture. And yes, quick or old-fashioned will both work. It does not matter for oats. Thank you. Old-fashioned was what I was looking for. I said long cooking oats. It's a new term for old-fashioned. Yeah. Yes, and I said sunflower butter for sure. So, and almond butter works. Cashew butter is really good in these cookies if you have cashew butter on hand. We tried to pick recipes for today that would be very flexible and things that people might have on hand, since not everybody maybe has everything that they always have on hand right now. We happen to have a new jar of peanut butter, so we're going to go ahead and use that. And you kind of need a lot. You need a whole cup. So,
Wow.
but it's
I'll
worth
get
it because this recipe is really,
And
really yummy.
Peanut butter tends to be sticky, so you
Yeah,
want
here,
to
I'm going
have
to grab
it.
the other one for us. Yeah, so we're going to use our little spatula. If you used it for your buttermilk, you can just go ahead and wash it, rinse it off, or you can grab another one. And that way we can fill up our measuring cup because we do want to be kind of exact with our nut and seed butter. We don't want to...
Want to mix it up if it's like a new jar.
Yeah, if it's a new jar and it's the kind that needs stirred a little bit.
Just mix
Yeah.
it up.
So we're adding a whole cup, 1 cup of peanut butter or almond butter or cashew butter or sun butter. We do this recipe a lot of times at classes and camps. And a lot of times there is an allergy, and so we'll use sun butter, and it tastes really good too. So
And a lot of times at home.
yeah, sometimes at home we just do. We love sunflower butter. So so I think my favorite way is cashew butter, but honestly they all taste good. So we're gonna just dump in into our measuring cup
And
here.
it's gonna stick. So you
It's
wanna-
gonna stick, so it's good to use
the spatula.
a spatula.
think
And
that's
it's a
good.
lot. That looks really good.
Yeah.
So she's gonna go ahead and scrape that all into the bowl and try to get as much out of the measuring cup as she can. And that was 1 whole cup of nut or seed butter, 1 whole cup. And if you maybe have like half jars, you can absolutely combine. So if you're like, I have half a jar of almond butter and half a jar of peanut butter, you can absolutely combine them and sort of to get that 1 cup of nut or seed butter.
Sticky.
It is sticky. All right, you
Sure,
almost have
almost
it all, I think. This part might get a little messy and you might have to wash hands after. Oh yeah, you're definitely gonna need to wash your hands now. Ooh, that's the timer. Bianca, would you like to check on the biscuits?
Sure.
All right,
It's a hot pad.
right there. I don't think you'll need to pull them out
think
yet.
that's
Just
good.
open the
I'm
oven
gonna
and
go
take a
wash my
look,
hands.
okay? We'll know that the biscuits are done when they're starting to get a little bit golden brown.
No, they're not ready yet.
They're not ready yet, yeah. Well, I think partly because we took them out for a few minutes to brush them. Yeah, oh yeah, they look really good. I'm gonna set the timer for 3 more minutes because we had originally set it for 8, but then we took it out for like over a minute. So I would say they need about 10 minutes to bake. Just kind of watch the biscuits because they might look golden on top, but if you leave them too long, they might get a little too dark on the bottom. So once they start to get golden on top, you know, you can kind of check the bottom. Definitely a grown-up should be helping you with the oven, and you can see how they're doing and take them out. But about 10 minutes is usually right. So there we go. Okay. All right, so now that we've got our peanut butter in the bowl for our cookies, and Isla's washed her sticky hands.
Yeah, there's still a little
They're still a little sticky. We're gonna add our next ingredient, which is 3/4 cup of packed brown sugar. So when something calls for packed brown sugar, that means you need to pack it into the measuring cup really well. You don't want it sort of loosey-goosey, you want it packed tight. So we're just gonna use a 1/4 measuring cup 3 times because we don't have on hand a 3/4 cup. Sometimes the sets come with one. So we're gonna scoop it up, and then for packing it, we're gonna squish it down really, really tight with our hands. We want it nice and tight. So go ahead. Let's add 3/4 cups. So 3/4 cups.
3 of these.
3 of those because
And
we need
squish
3/4 cup of brown sugar, and we need it packed. So squish it in really tight. If you don't like things super sweet, you could reduce it a little bit and add a little less sugar. I would say it balances out with the saltiness kind of the peanut butter, but you know, you could play around with it for sure. Did you pack that one too?
Yep.
Good. Nice job, guys.
Pack it. Can I do it over the bowl?
Mm-hmm. Pack it, pack it. Good job. Dump it in. Very nice. Okay. Now that we've added our brown sugar into our peanut butter, we're going to add in some flax meal. Now, this is optional. If you don't have flax, just leave it out. It won't
Yeah,
affect the
it-
texture.
It's just like an extra thing.
It's extra. It tastes good. It has kind of a nutty, warm taste when it's baked in things. And also it adds in a little extra fiber and protein. But we only need 1 tablespoon of flax. So let me get you a tablespoon. Add in 1 tablespoon of flax meal, or if you don't have flax meal in hand, go ahead and leave it out. Sure.
So Bianca is just getting some flax and using the finger smooth off,
Level off.
level off.
Okay, now I'm just gonna add it like that.
Nice. Perfect.
And if it sticks, just tap it on the side.
Yeah, that looks good. And then we're gonna add in 1 egg. So I'm gonna actually check the biscuits first, and Isla's gonna add the egg. Can you show our favorite way to
Okay.
crack an egg?
So our favorite way to crack an egg is you just start 10 just like this, and then you, on the side of the bowl, you just, till there's like a little crack like that, and you put your hands in the thumb, fit it in, and crack it.
And make sure there's no shell.
Yeah, make sure there's no shell. If there is shell, just take a little of the egg, like the broken in half, and scoop out the shell.
Good.
All right. You got your egg in the bowl? Nice. Yes, it was 1 cup of peanut butter or any nut or seed butter. And so we have 3/4 cup of packed brown sugar with that peanut butter. We put in a tablespoon of flax meal, which you can leave out if you don't have.
It was a double egg.
I think
Because like that was
I think
one
it
egg.
cracked a little bit. I don't think it was a double yolker, although those are cool.
Yeah.
And we added 1 egg into the mixture.
1 egg.
Real
Very
quick,
yellow.
I've taken our biscuits out of the oven because they're done, and I'll just show you real quick what they look like, and then we'll come right back to
And
our
make
cookies.
sure you, after you crack an egg, you make sure you wash your hands.
Yeah, that's a good idea to wash your hands. So here's our biscuits. They look nice and golden, and on the bottom, they got a little crispy, but not burnt or anything. That's pretty much perfect. If you leave them too long, the bottoms could get a little dark, but if that does happen, just cut the bottoms off after they're cooled. So you're gonna wanna let the biscuits cool a little before you start eating them because they're gonna be kind of hot in the middle,
Yeah,
for
they're
sure.
gonna be a
So
little hot.
we'll let them cool for a little bit before we taste test them.
I want to.
You really
So
want to taste
good.
test it. I know it smells really good in here. So I'm going to guess that everyone else's house smells really good too.
Yeah.
So we're going to add in a 1/4 cup of oats now. And there we go. And so again, some people were asking about the oats, so we'll just say it again. It doesn't matter. They can be the old-fashioned oats. They
This
can
is
be
just oats.
quick cooking oats. These ones that we're using are quick cooking gluten-free oats that we have on hand, but you can use whichever
Whoa.
ones. We just spilled oats all over the counter. See, I told
Yeah.
you we were messy cooks for sure. So we've got our oats in our measuring cup, and we're just gonna add a 1/4 cup, dump them right into the bowl.
And make sure you clean up the mess.
Make sure you clean up the mess dough. And then we only have 2 more ingredients to add, and our cookies are gonna be totally ready. We're gonna add in some baking soda. We need a teaspoon of baking soda,
Teaspoon.
and then we're gonna mix it up, and then lastly we'll fold in our chocolate chips
Should I put this?
or chocolate chunks,
I'm gonna
whichever
wipe it
ones
off.
you have on hand. I think we'll just put it together. So we're gonna add in 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Isla, do you want to add that in?
Yeah, I can't. This is hard.
Oh, don't worry about the mess right now. We'll get to it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and dump in.
Make sure you level it off and just dump it.
Nice. We have a teaspoon of baking soda right in there. Now we're going to use our other big spatula that we have to mix it up and just kind of mix the stuff together. So what we had in there was, you guys remember? 1 cup of peanut butter or
1 cup of
nut
peanut
or
butter.
sunflower butter, any nut or seed
any
butter.
Any nut butter.
3/4 cup packed brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of flax meal, but you can omit that, 1 egg, and we just added in a teaspoon of baking soda, and then a 1/4 cup of oats. So now I want to kind of show you what our dough looks like. It is a very sort of sticky dough, but that leads to very moist, yummy, soft, chewy cookies. So it's really good. There's our dough. Yeah, we add the chocolate chips last. Bianca just said, don't forget the chocolate chips. That would be a travesty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like they would taste good without them. So if you didn't have them on hand, they taste like a peanut butter cookie, right? But honestly, when in doubt, I say add chocolate for sure. So we're going to be adding our chocolate. So we're using some chocolate chunks that we have on hand, but you can use any chocolate chips that you have on hand. That will work. So go ahead, and if you've taken your biscuits out of the oven, turn your oven down to 350. I went ahead and did that, so that way our cookies won't burn. And sometimes I crack the oven a little bit just to let it cool down a little bit quicker. Since it was high, so it usually doesn't take it too long. All right, so for chocolate chips, we need a half a cup. I'm gonna say a liberal half a cup, which means
more.
it can be here, not this one. We'll use this because we already used that one. We'll use this one. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and fill it up. You think it should be, so like a little overflowing is okay, right?
Yeah, a little overflowing.
Oh, what do you think? More? A little more? All right.
More.
When in doubt, a little more chocolate. All right.
I think that's good.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm glad we added a little more since we're doing chocolate chunks. Okay, do you want to sort of stir that in? The dough, the more you stir it, it should be getting kind of thick and a little tricky to stir in those chocolate chips. But that's good. That means it's exactly where you want it to be to turn it into cookies.
If it gets stuck to the thing, just bang it on the edge.
Not too hard, though.
Not too hard.
All right. So I mentioned it before, but again, you should have a second baking sheet ready with some parchment paper on it so the cookies don't stick to it, or you can use a reusable nonstick mat, or you can just grease the pan really well if you don't have either of those things. I like parchment paper because it's really easy to clean up and it's really easy to pull them off. They don't stick to it very well. So we use that a lot for our classes. In fact, we go through a lot of parchment in our classes.
We have like maybe one whole roll.
Well, not today. We haven't gone through a whole roll.
We don't really.
All right. Okay. I don't know. This tripod, I suspect has some issues. I want it. It's like.
That's why Dad gave it to me.
Is that why Dad gave it to you? Okay. Well, that explains it. All right. So as I said before, this is our first live class. We normally do them in person, so we're still working on getting the kinks out of our technology. But yeah, our dough looks really good. Just kind of to show you what it looks like. It kind of looks like peanut butter Play-Doh almost, and it smells like it too. It smells really good. So what we're gonna do for this is we're gonna get our pan, and I'm gonna show you how to make your cookies. It's really easy, just like the biscuits were. We're gonna take our dough.
Make sure the pan is parchment.
Yeah, and we're gonna kind of roll it into little balls. If your dough is really sticky, you could add in a little more of the oats to kind of make it not so sticky. Or you could put, if you have the flour on hand that we used in your biscuits, you could put a little flour. But ours is perfect. We don't need to worry too much. So you kind of roll it into a little ball, put it on the parchment and kind of squish it down.
Not too much.
Not too much. Squish it down a little. And then for this recipe, you do not want them to be too close together. These cookies spread. And so unless you want one giant cookie, which might be really delicious, right?
But might also not be the best for sharing.
It'll be hard to get up too. You want to keep them a little ways apart from each other. A couple of things you can do. You can leave them just like this. They look great. You can also
use like a cutter.
Use a fork and make a little print pattern like you would do for peanut butter cookies. They do spread, so it changes a little bit, but you can do that.
But you still get like a print.
Yeah, if you want to do that, that's kind of fun.
But you should do it like before you squish it down, because the fork sort of squishes.
You think so?
Down.
All right, I'm going to trust your guidance on that, Isla. And you'll just sort of roll them into little balls and shape them down. You'll definitely want to wash your hands after this. Ooh, I think Bianca wins the award for the chocolatiest, chunkiest cookie there. That looks awesome.
My chocolate chip's falling out.
Yeah. These cookies are so yummy too. They're one of my favorite recipes.
We might need a bit more parchment.
We might use a second pan. We'll have to see. I think we can fit them all
I
on.
need to take up one chocolate chip.
Because we don't want one giant cookie, do we? So if you're feeling like your cookies are a little too crowded together, you can get out a second pan with parchment and spread them out that way a little bit. Back around the holiday time, we did these cookies for a class, and we ended up having a lot left over. And one of our instructors, Katie, and myself, we ate quite a bit of cookies in one day. They were
And then
so
you brought
good.
home the rest for us.
Yeah, we did. We had a lot of these cookies. They were really good. Okay. That's looking really good, you guys.
Still, we're gonna
Okay.
get some bones.
Oh my goodness.
I think we're gonna need a second pan.
You think we are?
Yeah.
No, I think we can fit them. If we have a little bit of a section here. We just need to like kind of use the whole pan. We didn't have it all the way to the edges.
All the way to the edges. Put this one back
Yeah.
here.
That's a bit too close.
Nice. Oh, that's looking good.
No.
So, does anybody have their biscuits out of the oven? And how do they look? Feel free to comment if you want and let us know. Also, after this, we're gonna put this live video on our page, so you can go back and watch it. And we'd love for people to put in the comments section any photos they might take of what they make today. We would love to see how yours turn out for sure. Those are looking amazing.
Yeah, and you want to make sure you take some chocolate chips out if they're like breaking.
I think we're
Let
gonna
me
fit them
see
all.
one.
We have only a bit left.
They're breaking apart.
Yeah.
Left.
Why don't we
Take a little
leave?
bit.
Yeah, why don't we just put these in like this, and we'll leave the rest for now, and then we can pop
But
them on the
there's
pan.
only one more cookie.
You
No,
think
there's
only one more?
There's two more.
You think so? All
Two
right.
more cookies.
Well,
Can
I'm
we
taking
fit
a
two?
look. I think you can. If a couple stick together, it's okay, as long as we don't
What
end
do
up
we do
with
with
one
this
giant cookie. Here.
Um,
See, this is good
Ah.
good math. Spatial recognition and awareness and
Who knew
Spatial
cooking?
all that
recognition is
stuff.
Who knew cooking could be math?
I did. We had to do a lot of math for measuring and stuff. It's fun math. I mean, all math is fun math, but cooking is extra fun math.
How do you eat it?
Because you get to eat it. Yeah. Ooh, somebody
never
said
eat
they
mine.
taste amazing. Oh, they must have tried their biscuits. Awesome. All right. We're going to go ahead and put our cookie pan in the oven. And for the cookies, I'm going to set the timer for 7 minutes because they take about 8 to 10 minutes. And I usually start with like slightly lower just in case they go really fast. So let's see. Gretchen says biscuits look and smell so good. Oh,
Well, I
that's
wanna-
so
can we
awesome to
test
hear.
this?
Yeah, why don't you guys test a biscuit before we start our fruit
Wait,
round?
should we split?
And I'm going to
should we
set the
split one?
timer.
Should we split like a? This one?
No, you guys can each have one.
Yay!
So there's a
So
So
good.
I'm going to set the timer for 7 minutes for our
and
cookies.
taste testing.
It's so good.
What is it?
It's really good.
It's
It
so
is
good.
really good.
We were right about the dill and Italian.
So
If
flaky.
something's really yummy, does that mean you can talk with your mouth open or no? I don't know. As long as we don't get too close to the camera, it's probably okay. We'll try to use our manners. Really good. But tell me, did you get those yummy pockets of butter?
Yeah.
Yeah? Oh, good.
Good to look at them out
Awesome.
and put it in.
So what are some things that we like to make these with? You guys love it when we make these with our butternut squash soup recipe,
yes.
right? Because they go really well with soup. They're
you can
great
just,
to
like,
dip
dip
in
'em in.
things. Yeah. Why don't you guys eat those biscuits, and we're gonna start getting ready to make our fruit ones. So we'll clean up our space a little bit. We have a lot of stuff on the counter from making those two recipes. For the fruit ones, you really just need fruit,
And
whatever
a wand.
fruit you have on hand. Yep, and something for the wand.
I
So
don't like.
a cutting board and a knife. So you could use toothpicks, you can use coffee stirrers, skewers, straws if you have them. You could even use plastic silverware, whatever you can find on hand. A lot of people do have bamboo skewers on hand just because you use them for grilling and other things.
I have a chocolate chunk and I have a biscuit. I wonder if they're gonna taste good together.
Oh my gosh,
Do they?
I'm gonna say weird, but maybe like a
I'm
savory,
gonna go try.
a
Weird?
salty sweet thing.
Weird, but okay.
Oh, you guys,
I'm gonna
you're
try.
so funny.
Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Chocolate chip plus biscuit.
Equals gross or good?
Good.
Good. Okay. Well, I'm gonna say try at your own risk.
It's good though.
It's good. Isla and Bianca say it's good, so you'll have to see if you're gonna do that. So can we show some of the skewer options there, B? Can you grab some of those?
So
I'll go straw.
I'll get one of each. So we have a straw because like everyone has straws.
Paper straws. You can also use reusable straws. Metal straws would work.
We have like
A coffee
a little
stirring
coffee.
stick.
These
stir
are
stick.
these are little wooden coffee stirs, and
Like popsicle sticks. With
yeah. Why don't
dinner.
you grab the package of that? So you can just get these usually at most grocery stores in the coffee aisle, and they work great for making fruit kebabs because they're sharp enough to go through fruit, but they're kind of rounded, so they're not super pokey. And so for younger kids, or actually even for just myself, you don't have to worry about poking yourself, which never feels very good.
We
does
also
it?
have toothpicks, which
Yep.
also work good because they're sharp enough to poke through.
So be a little careful with the toothpick or a
And
skewer.
the ones we have here are kind of short, but they work a bit better when they're longer.
Yeah, you can
can
use
fit
longer
more
ones. We think we're going to use these today since we have them on hand. So each of you guys grab your cutting board. How long on the cookies? So the cookies take 8 to 10 minutes. I set my timer for 7 because I just want to check on them and make sure that they don't get too dark. So typically, you know, with a dark colored cookie like that, it's a little tricky because you want to make sure they're not burning on the bottom. These cookies are also really soft, so they get a little bit harder once they come out of the oven and cool. So you just kind of want to check carefully. But 7 to 10 minutes is about right. So I'm thinking they'll be about 8 minutes, especially since we already had the oven on for a while and then we turned it down. So we've got our skewers.
Adorable cutting things.
You can use any cutting board. It doesn't have to
This
be
is a
an
strawberry.
adorable one, but if you have an adorable one, that's great too.
And over there,
Um,
I'm sitting at
And then we showed these again in the beginning, but I'll show them again.
I like
These are our knives that we have. Some of you who've been to our classes have potentially purchased the knives from us. So we sell these ones a lot of times
And
in
you
our
want to make
classes.
sure.
But you can also get them in a 3-pack online.
Anyway,
And then these ones are from IKEA, and you can just search Kids Chef Knife. And so these ones are metal. They are a little bit sharper, but the plastic ones work really well. You know, they're tricky to cut through raw potato or, you know, carrots sometimes are a little
like,
harder to cut
you
through,
have to,
but
like,
you have to really kind of saw
saw.
them. So we're going to go ahead and give you guys your knives here.
oh,
And then this is really easy. So if you guys need to go, you can go ahead and make these on your own, or you can keep watching us. We're going to keep cooking here and dropping things too. We're going to take our wands and we're basically going to, are you okay? What did you drop on your foot?
someone knocked over
A fork? It was a fork. Ouch. Hazards of cooking. Make sure you be careful in
At
the
least
kitchen.
it wasn't a knife.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No,
This is why we have the covers.
in all seriousness, we do take knife safety very serious in our classes and at home too. So the girls are going to show you some of our tricks for knife safety. You've got their wands. And then, again, we know that this is a time where maybe you don't have everything that you normally have in your house. We like to make rainbow fruit kebabs where we try to do every color. We don't have every color of fruit today.
But you
so
can still like fruit.
you can use any fruit. And the fun thing about making fruit kebabs is you can make any pattern that you want. So we're going to go ahead. Cookies should go in for about 7 to 10 minutes. We've got some grapes today. We've got strawberries.
And
We've
some
got
like me.
peas. And we've also got oranges. And if you're making these at your house, you can add the fruits you like. So if there's some fruits that you don't like, you don't have to add that. Or,
Some
you know, everybody can make their own. So if you're kind of making them with your siblings, you know, everybody can make theirs the way that they want
Some
to.
people, like me, eat the stems.
Some people eat the stems of strawberries. That's true.
Yeah,
but you don't
they're
have
good.
to. You can cut them
Yeah,
off.
she says they're really good.
So you guys can work on showing this. And I'm going to check on our cookies. Someone says they're adding cheese cubes to their apples and grapes. That sounds amazing. If you
Yum.
have cheese on hand, you can add that as well.
Do we have
So,
cheese?
do we have cheese? We do have some cheese.
Well,
we
can we
could
add
do
some?
that. Yeah, that's
So-
a great idea.
For cutting a strawberry, you want to cut off the top, unless you like it, like some people.
And make sure you're tucked in a claw once you're cutting.
And then you can just cut it like in half like this and quarters again.
And make
or
sure-
you can just slice it.
So here's a cheese stick, Isla.
Can I cut it up?
Yeah, you could cut it
It's
into
so
little cubes.
delicious.
optional. Cheese and fruit does taste good together, and it's
For the oranges,
Fancy.
you don't
It's
need
so
to cut it.
fancy.
You can
You
just
just peel it
and break it apart like a normal orange.
yeah. All right. Yep. So you just want to cut your fruit. If it needs washed, make sure you clean it and wash it. I'm gonna check on our cookies.
Here.
Oh wow, those look good. I put 7 minutes, and I can tell that they need just a couple more. So I'm gonna set the timer
We
for
each have 4.
2 more minutes, and then I think they're gonna be done. They
So
smell.
you can just peel apart the orange.
Smells
so
like
it's just
chocolate in
one
here for
thing.
sure.
Yeah.
Or you can stick the entire orange on.
Yeah, definitely.
The
So you might
just,
want a straw
for
for
the
that.
kiwi,
They're kinda
you just cut off the top so you can see like the seeds, and then just like
Are you gonna
cut off the
slice it
skin.
and
Or
then
you
cut off
could
the
just
skin? Yeah.
stick the orange like that.
I don't think that works.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
So basically cut your fruit into small pieces and then start adding it to your skewer like this. Just gently poking it through, sliding it down until you make it how you want it. And then the best part is it doesn't have to go in the oven. You can eat it right away. So
stop, don't go. It's my kiwi.
share the fruit, guys. Share the fruit. We have a lot of it.
Here's some kiwis here.
So you can
With
make
the
your
grapes,
fruit
you don't
kebabs.
have to cut it up, but if you want, you can cut it in half.
Yeah, you could cut them in half if you like.
How are you
You
peeling?
can. The best part about this recipe is you can really make it however you want. You can add whatever fruits. You can cut them however you
We're
like.
gonna have cheese.
You can add cheese. This is a great one to make, whether you're a grown up or a kid or whatever. This is a wonderful way. And somehow things just like taste better on a stick. I don't know why, right? Like corn dogs, popsicles,
Hey, Isla.
ice cream pops,
Isla.
and fruit. Everything tastes better
Hey,
on a stick.
Isla.
Well, I don't know if everything, but a lot of things do.
Isla.
Oh my gosh. So we're going to stay live for a few more minutes while we wait for our cookies to come out. But then we're going to wrap it up. And I think most people have probably
Oh my gosh.
finished or at least got their items in the oven. So
No.
let's see.
Go.
Yeah, so she's kind of got a circle kiwi here, but she's
And I
still got some skin.
cheese.
So we can cut the little skin off using our claw. And you got some cheese. You want to add some kiwi too?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to check on those cookies, and I'm guessing it's time to take those out. All right, yep, they look amazing. Now, I'm not going to try to take them off the pan right away because these cookies are really soft and chewy, but they're really soft when they come out of the oven. They need to cool a little before you can pick them up, or they'll kind of fall apart on you. So here's what they look like. And you can see, you touch them, they're kind of soft, but let them cool, and they actually kind of finish baking through the rest of the way as they cool. So I wouldn't try moving them for at least 10 minutes. Give them a full 10 minutes or longer to cool. And then when you are ready to eat them, if they still feel a little warm, you know, just test them in the middle or blow on them before you try eating
So you
them.
can just use like one of these to test if they're ready.
Ooh, let's see your fruit kebab.
So you can do a pattern like she did.
I
Oh.
went cheese, strawberry, kiwi. Cheese, strawberry, kiwi.
That's
or
awesome.
you can do a random jumble like I did.
Ooh, love the random
You
jumbo.
can do a rainbow if you have all of the fruits that are rainbow.
You
If
could do
don't, you can
all the
just
same
try
fruit.
it.
We've had people, you know, sometimes at camp or classes, they only like one fruit. One person made a giant lightsaber out of grapes. It was really cool. So you guys
Wow.
can add whatever fruit you like and make them however you like. So want to repeat just a couple things before we go off. I did add the recipes to
Where should I put this?
put right here. I'm going to hold it while I talk.
Okay.
So cool. We did put our recipes on our Facebook page as a JPEG so that people could see them. And also you can drop your email below this video and we can send you the PDF so you can print it out at maybe a little higher resolution if you would like. And also feel free to drop photos below of any of your things you made, and also give us suggestions for recipes you'd love to see, because
Yeah.
we would love to do
Because we
another
don't
one
have
of
enough.
these classes
We don't
in
have
the
enough
future.
ideas.
We don't have enough ideas. Well, we want to know what everybody else wants to make too. And yeah, and thank you so much for everybody who came and joined us. This was our first time doing one, so we definitely had kinks to work out. But it was so fun to cook with you, and it's going to be so fun to see what everybody made. And also enjoy eating your yummy food.
Yeah.
Enjoy your delicious
Bye.
creations.
Yummy
Bye.
Sprout out.
Yummy Sprout out. I guess that's how we sign off now, as we say Yummy
It
Sprout
is
out.
definitely.
All right. Goodbye, everybody, and thanks for joining us.